Member for Callide.
Mr Deputy Speaker, I rise to speak on the Appropriation Bill 2018. The Callide electorate is the economic engine room of Queensland. It generates in the vicinity of $3 billion of income to the Queensland economy. And what have we got from the trad budget? Absolutely nothing, Mr Deputy Speaker. What we do have is a re-announcement of some capital works programs that have already been announced, programs that have already been started. This is a shameful budget that ignores the money-making people of my electorate. As the Mayor of the North Burnett Council has said, this is a double-dipping budget that has no new money for Callide. The Callide electorate is the energy hub of Queensland. We have 2 baseload coal-fired power stations and large renewable energy power generation that has helped lift power generation revenue to the dizzy heights of $1.24 billion to the Queensland economy, $759 million more than has been estimated. Callide has also several large coal mines that have also helped to raise the royalties from coal exports to $3.7 billion. Despite this, Mr Deputy Speaker, the Callide electorate has been ignored in the budget prepared and delivered by the Treasurer this week. Agriculture is trying to flourish in the Callide electorate, Mr Deputy Speaker, despite the Labor government's efforts to stifle it. At Mundubbera there is a $100 million fruit industry. Smartberry's farm alone is estimating a 1,000-tonne crop, with earnings projected at being between $35 to $50 million, employing up to 500 people at its peak. And yet there is no mention of water security for agriculture, or the construction of the Kuranga Weir on the Boyne River that these irrigators and farmers so desperately need. Water supplies to this vibrant industry are expected to cease in August-September this year, with water levels in the Boondooma Dam reaching the 30% level, at which irrigation water allocations will cease. Mr Deputy Speaker, Citrus on the Boyne is also expecting a $20 million production and employs 300 people. That's another 300 jobs at a time when your unemployment figures need assistance, especially the youth market, where unemployment levels are approaching the 50% level in rural Queensland. Imagine the benefits of investing in water security for this reason. It's very simple. If you have water, you have jobs. Other industries that would benefit include pecan nuts, melons, grapes, mangoes, lucerne and piggery, all of which contribute to the revenue stream of Queensland. Yet all we get is a kick in the guts from a government that's more interested in vote grabbing than supporting vital infrastructure. Mr Deputy Speaker, when the people of Callide realised that the Labor government would rather spend $45 million to build a bike track in inner-city Brisbane, they will know what contempt the Labor government holds for farmers, the people who supply them with their food, the ones who give the basic necessities of life, will once more be traded on. $45 million investment in water security would build the Kuranga Weir. If the Labor government would only access some of the federal government's $2.5 billion water infrastructure fund, the cost would be far less. Mr Deputy Speaker, Queensland Farmers Federation today highlighted that the state government spending on agriculture has decreased at an average annual rate of 1.7% over the past 15 years. Agriculture is the fastest growing industry in Australia, but the Labor government is determined to destroy its potential. In a world where food production may have to double by the year 2050, it is imperative that the agriculture gets the water infrastructure investment that it needs. Mr Deputy Speaker, also hindering agriculture are the roads in the state that they're in. These roads and highways are the essential networks that link our hard-working agricultural environmentalists to the hungry mouths in the south-east electorates. Many of these roads require major upgrades. There are at least 2,800 kilometres of state-controlled roads in Callide. Some of these roads have sections that remain unsealed and they are dangerous. We have had recently road fatalities as a result. Mr Deputy Speaker, I've recently invited the Shadow Minister for Transport and Main Roads, Steve Minikin, which he has accepted, to join me on a tour of some of the roads in Callide electorate in a semi-trailer, so he can see for himself and have a first-hand experience of just what it's like to travel these roads in a big truck and understand the ramifications of this failing infrastructure. Mr Deputy Speaker, I've also extended the same invitation to the Minister for Main Roads and Transport, Mark Bailey, but alas, I have had no reply. Mr Deputy Speaker, the Callide roads don't even rate a mention in the Queensland Government's plan for a road infrastructure. The Warrego Highway got a mention, but just another re-announcement of a project that's already well underway. Callide roads are the 5 regional councils' responsibility, and they will be worse off, Mr Deputy Speaker, with Labor government cutting funding to local government departments to the tune of $50 million. Maybe this is the money used to fund the $45 million bikeway in Brisbane. Mr Deputy Speaker, Queensland has among the highest registration charges in the nation. There are approximately 41,000 registered vehicles in the Callide electorate. The LNP election promise was to freeze car registration fees to assist our fellow Queenslanders with the cost of living pressures. The increase of 3.5% to register a vehicle will equate to over $1.2 million expense to the people of Callide. Mr Deputy Speaker, make no mistake, make absolutely no mistake, the vegetation management laws will impact on all your electorates in the coming years, as farmers and grazers are forced to pay additional costs to continue to produce the world-class food and fibre products which they are known for. These costs will be passed on to consumers at the checkout, where they might start to feel the impact of an over-regulation and of an industry that finds itself with minimal assistance from the ALP budget after 6 years of drought. And yet Labor has been able to kick back money to their greenie mates, such as the $1.8 million of public funds for political advocacy group, the Australian Conservation Council. It is a pity that some of that money wasn't spent on getting the science correct in the vegetation management laws that were forced through Parliament last month. Mr Deputy Speaker, even tourism is feeling the detriment effect of the Labor government, with its insistence that the Great Barrier Reef is being destroyed by farmers. $181 million will be cut from Queensland touristy industry development next year, accounting for an overwhelming 58% of the total budget. Perhaps Labor feels that they will save money by driving the tourism industry into the ground, deterring tourists from visiting our state. Queensland is now lagging behind most of the states, with the third least number of nights spent here by international visitors. Surely tourism should be supported, particularly in the regions where our travellers should be encouraged to visit and spend their tourist dollars. Mr Deputy Speaker, digital communications are another area where our electorate struggles to meet worldwide market expectations, again hampering our progression in all industries, tourism and employment opportunities. Constituents are missing out on jobs because of the lack of internet connectivity and speed. Our school students are also disadvantaged as schools struggle to cope with the increasing need and demand for faster and better technology. The new secondary school at Calliope has finally appeared on the budget, again, Mr Deputy Speaker, and again another re-announcement of a much-needed education infrastructure. Mr Deputy Speaker, Callide has all the major gas lines to Curtis Island passing through the electorate, as well as a large proportion of the CSG gas industry, which also makes a substantial contribution to the economy of Queensland. The forecast from the budget papers is for approximately $1.78 billion in royalties. Mr Turner, the APPEA Queensland Director, stated, to put it into context, royalties forecast to be paid by the natural gas industry are enough to support the jobs of over 4,000 teachers, nurses or emergency service workers each year. Speaking of nurses, surely some of these funds could have gone to support the health services in my electorate. Only Gardner and Eidsvold have rated a mention, and again, re-announcements of projects already begun. the Chinchilla Hospital, the largest district in the Callide electorate, has received no funding, where maternity services have been on bypass, and the Queensland Hospital Health Supply Services are having their budgets slashed by almost $395 million. And that is at a time when the federal government has assisted with almost $4.8 million coming this year, putting at rest the mistruth about exactly what funding has come from the federal government. Queenslanders deserve a world-class health system, no matter where they live, but the Labor government does not support the health needs of Callide. Mr Deputy Speaker, the LNP created the 16 hospital and health boards across Queensland as a part of a plan to empower local communities, increase local accountability and value our health workers. LNP doubled the subsidy to help patients travel to hospitals, helping rural and regional Queensland get access to the services they needed. We reopened regional maternity services that previous Labor governments shut down. At the last state election, the Labor didn't even promise a single additional hospital bed outside south-east Queensland. Mr Speaker, this budget has delivered very little for the electorate of Callide, a major economic generator for the economy of Queensland. Queensland debt is to rise to $83 billion, spending growth at 2.1% and revenue growth at 1.7% over 4 years, Mr Deputy Speaker. I am a businessman, and when spending outstrips income, that is a recipe for ruin. What we have here is the Government of Brisbane delivering a budget for Brisbane with no attempt at addressing our growing debt level or the needs of the rest of the state. It is a disgrace, Mr Deputy Speaker. On a scale of 1 to 10, since there ain't no zeros, they get a 1.
I call the member for Jordan.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker.